Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another edition of How I Would Book It WWE 2015. This is Monday Night Raw, 2 weeks before the Royal Rumble, and these first three matches with Zack Ryder, Alicia Fox, and Rosa Mendez, Adam Rose, and Curtis Axel are all pre-show matches. The first match on the card involves the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Well, not match, but still. The first thing on the card, on the actual show I should say, involves Ric Flair. And Ric Flair, surprisingly, showing up at the arena and leading to this. The announcers discussing why Ric Flair could possibly be here. Then the announcers go on and talk about the WWE World Heavyweight title match between Brock Lesnar, John Cena, and Seth Rollins at the Royal Rumble. And then we move to our first match, which is Jimmy Uso versus Goldust. I just figured that just because he's, tag team champion, does not mean that he is only allowed to compete in tag team matches. And that I think Goldust should be able to compete in any, I'm adjusting the video camera, any type of match, including singles matches, without Cody. Sorry, Stardust. And as you see on the little recap of the match below, Goldust won. Now, I'm going to go back with an old favorite, as if you remember back in the day, there were times when a blacked out limo would show up backstage, and it would lead to people wondering who's in the limo. Mystery. Pardon my voice. Mystery. And that's what I would do. I would have a limo pull up backstage and have nobody know who's in the limo, building suspense of who could it be. Then we move to this, with Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair talking backstage. Because of who is in this segment, I would have no problem giving them creative freedom, meaning freedom to say or do what they want in the segment. But I would give them the direction of saying, I want you to talk about the old days in this segment, and talk about the time when Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair, yes, I know I pointed to the opposite, but when Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair, when Ricky Steamboat versus Ric Flair was the hottest thing in the wrestling business. Which, yes, there actually was a time that was the case, and I'm sure Flair and Steamboat would thoroughly enjoy talking about a time when, talking about the past. Now I would have Bray cut a promo on Dean, one of Bray's trademark promos where he comes out to the ring with the lights down low, like we saw so many times in the hype to WrestleMania when he was cutting promos about The Undertaker. But Bray would come out. I would give, much like Flair and Steamboat, and also because Bray actually does have the freedom to write his own promos in real life, I would let him write his own promos here, but I would just give him direction and telling him to let it build to his match, which was made official on Smackdown against Dean at the Royal Rumble. if I confused you, basically, Dean versus Bray is the third official match. Actually, wait. Thus far, the Divas title match, the Royal Rumble, and the WWE World Heavyweight title match are the matches confirmed for the Royal Rumble. Now, after Smackdown, Bray and Dean are also confirmed for Smackdown. The Royal Rumble. I would have Bray cut a promo in this segment building up that match. Now we move to the Bellas versus cutting a promo on AJ and Paige. Basically, in this segment, I would have Nikki and Brie continue to say they are the definition of what a real diva is, and AJ and Paige are just freaks, basically, to keep it, broad spectrum. And if you remember SmackDown last week, Brie versed Natalya, and Natalya won off a distraction from AJ. And that's what led to this match. Excuse me. But this is also a match to get AJ some momentum going into the Royal Rumble match in 2 weeks against Nikki for the WWE Divas title. Following the match, the Bellas try and soften AJ up for the Royal Rumble, but Paige runs interference and helps AJ. You also hear Paige say, "Not over a microphone. I would do this different, and I would have the cameras catch it. The in-ring cameras have Paige tell AJ she has her back, and she'll be ringside for the Royal Rumble because she knows Brie will be too." And then we move backstage. Let me slide the camera over. Then we move backstage with John Cena and Ric Flair talking about, basically praising each other and all their accomplishments and all that stuff. And Flair says that if anybody was going to break his record for the most world titles, he's happy it's a workaholic like Cena. And he'd be okay with it because he views it as all records are meant to be broken. Nothing is forever. Then we move, if you remember on SmackDown, I said that I was going to start running videos for those who are officially in the Royal Rumble to promote why they are a threat to win the Royal Rumble, and that's what I'm doing right here, promoting why Dolph Ziggler is a threat to win the Royal Rumble, And the same thing will be done with the other participants, like Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. At this point are the only 3 in the Royal Rumble, but more will be added. Now, Roman Reigns. I just wanted to say this quick that I know somebody might be thinking, oh, WWE never does random matches. Well, I have nothing for Roman Reigns. I have nothing for Fandango. I want to use Roman, so I put him in a match. And I also want to build Roman's momentum to make him be on a momentum high going into the Royal Rumble. Now, you might be wondering why Jerry Lawler's pictured there. See, think of Jerry Lawler in this in this segment as a Renee Young. That, actually, in reality, in this game, Renee is down in my developmental. That's why she's not up. That's why she's not the one doing the interviews. But that's not the point of this interview. The point of this interview is not to suspect who is doing the interview. It's that during the interview, The Miz did not allow Mizdow in his shot. That he did not allow Mizdow to get in camera. So if you were sitting at home watching the interview, watching Raw, or even in the arena, how the camera would be angled, you would not be able to see Mizdow, because Miz I'm making Miz continuously be hungry for the spotlight and not willing to share anymore, because he views it as Mizdow is getting more popular than him. But if he keeps Mizdow out of the spotlight, he doesn't have to worry about sharing Mizdow getting more popular than him. And the last thing I want to say about it is, ratings-wise, Jerry gets better ratings doing the promo interviews than Byron Saxton, and that's why I chose to make Jerry do the interview. Music video promoting the history between the Dust Brothers and the Nation. The announcers talk about Miz. By the way, the Miz actually cut a promo on Cesaro. And speaking of Cesaro will be taking on Damien Mizdow on Smackdown. Now we move to this match. Sheamus versus The Miz. The Miz comes up short after a distraction from Cesaro to kickstart The Miz versus Cesaro's feud. And yes, Mizdow was at ringside, but did nothing to help Miz, which led to this. Miz has a temper tantrum following the match, and is yelling at Mizdow for not doing anything and helping him win. And he pushes Mizdow, which makes the fans want Mizdow to fight back, but Mizdow does not. Now we go backstage. If you haven't been able to pinpoint it, which you might not be able to because of the last two segments that Flair has been involved in, I am actually attempting to make Flair, like, this is, I guess you could put it, slow build. I'm slow building to Flair finding a client and becoming a weekly presence on the show. You know, and I know for a fact, if I show Flair and Dolph Ziggler backstage, that will probably make some marks go crazy and teasing the idea of Flair and Dolph Ziggler together. Because people have wanted to see Flair manage Dolph for a very long time. But it's likely never going to happen. And in my opinion, it shouldn't, because I don't think Dolph needs a manager. Now we go back to the ring with John Cena and Paul Heyman trading words. Cena basically says that this is a playoff of Cena and Flair's segment earlier in the show, that Cena basically says he got the praise and the okay from Ric Flair to become the single most winningest champion in the history of wrestling by breaking Flair's 16 reigns. But before he could break Flair's 16 reigns, he has to have his 16th. But before Cena can continue, Paul Heyman comes out and interrupts him. And Paul basically tells Cena that he can get all the praise he wants and can get anybody's okay to become a 16-time world champion that he wants, but the one thing he can't get is a scouting report on Paul Heyman's client, because John Cena can't beat Brock Lesnar. Because Ric Flair can't tell you how it is to be in the ring with a beast. Ric Flair might have been in the ring with Brock Lesnar before, but now Brock Lesnar is a beast. He is the one in 21-1. Paul Heyman continues to spit out the achievements of Brock, like the former two-time NCAA World Champion, a superstar collegiate athlete, former UFC World Heavyweight Champion, the only person to win both the UFC and WWE World Heavyweight titles. And John Cena interrupts Paul and says, that doesn't matter, because Brock doesn't have these people on his side like I do. Something, some John Cena expression that he would say. Something to that effect. And now we go backstage. Seth Rollins, the Authority. Much like every other week, it seems like, the Authority are planning something. Okay. The Authority are planning something. And we don't know what it is. They're keeping it a secret. Because once again, once the Authority saw we were in the locker room, they kicked us out. And then we videotaped the door for a couple minutes to try and get some sound, and we only could hear bits and pieces. But now we move back to the ring with Lana and Rusev making their way to the ring. And Lana cuts another scathing promo on the United States and says that the United States, American wrestlers are weak, and they proved that last week when Rusev injured Jack Swagger, which, yes, Rusev actually did injure Jack Swagger. Nothing severe, and he will be back soon, but still, it plays to how dangerous Rusev is, that he can injure someone. And he, it proves how dangerous. Lana continues and says, last week Rusev proved that he is superior to the weak Americans by defeating your real American. Which could indirectly be planting the seeds for a Rusev versus Jack Swagger feud again. But we'll see what happens. And then, before Lana can continue, a certain lunatic fringe interrupts. As Dean Ambrose goes against Rusev tonight. Yes, I know somebody, if WWE actually did this, somebody would be, well, I don't really care about being politically correct. Somebody would be butthurt if Rusev versus Dean Ambrose, because people would be feeling like Dean Ambrose is jobbing to Rusev. No. I'm killing two birds with one stone and having Rusev continue to look dominant against the WWE roster, and continue his undefeated streak, and continue getting major heat and becoming a top heel like it's supposed to be, and Dean and Bray's feud continues as Bray cost Dean the match. Dean isn't jobbing. Rusev still looks dominant. Rusev keeps his heat. Bray and Dean's feud continues. There's nothing bad here. Absolutely nothing. And that's good booking in my opinion. Of course it's good booking in my opinion. I did it. And then this leads to I apologize. No, it wasn't Smackdown that the match got accepted. It was tonight that the match got accepted. I knew I did that segment. Dean, following the match, Bray disappears. And Dean calls him up. wait. Before Bray can make his way backstage, Dean challenges him to a match as Bray's leaving the ring. Or some, in some way. Dean gets a microphone and challenges Bray to a match at the Royal Rumble. And Bray accepts. So we have our fourth match for the Royal Rumble. I apologize for the misconception that the match was already made. Now as we go to commercial, Daniel Bryan is shown walking backstage. Now we come back. A killer segment with, I got an 85, with Ric Flair and the Authority. In this segment, I would have Flair, like near the end of the segment, Flair and Seth Rollins trade words, and, Flair says that the Authority is just a knockoff of the Four Horsemen. But, as it would be easier for me to say this. In this segment, I would have Flair, Rollins, and Kane do basically all of the talking and let them be completely unscripted. Because I feel like with Flair out there, he could help them. He can help guide them in the segment. Because I feel like if somebody knows how to work unscripted, they can guide the other people of how to work, of how to do it. And just, base what you're going to say off of how you're feeling in the segment, in the present moment. That's how it should be, because writers can't write for everyone, because because the writers don't know how everyone would handle a certain situation. Flair also calls Rollins an ungrateful punk, which makes the Authority circle Flair and go after Flair. And that leads to John Cena running in and saving Flair from the Authority. But, as you see, Kane, Mercury, and Noble are the only ones there. Seth Rollins ducked out of the ring and escaped John Cena. This building to Cena versus Rollins one-on-one, like I said a couple weeks ago. Speaking of Cena versus Rollins, Rollins is making his way back up the stage after, slipping out of the ring, and that leads to a heated confrontation between Cena and Rollins once again. I believe like it was on Smackdown or Raw a couple weeks ago. This leads to Big Show versus Bad News Barrett. Unfortunately, this was a bad match because these guys don't click. They don't have chemistry. Cena is interviewed about Seth Rollins, about basically the actions of earlier tonight with Seth Rollins and Ric Flair, and Cena tells Seth Rollins that he stepped over the line by trying to assault one of the greatest entertainers in our business, and now Cena has more of an axe to grind than he did before with Seth Rollins. The big part of this segment is this. Flair approaches John Cena and asks Cena if Cena would be okay with Flair accompanying him to ringside. Excuse me, I can't talk. Accompanying him to ringside for the Royal Rumble. And Cena agrees. So Flair will be at ringside with Cena at the Royal Rumble, meaning everyone will have a manager. Now we move to an open challenge. This will be a weekly thing for me, with Daniel Bryan issuing open challenges every week against random other people. To try and make the most out of Daniel Bryan when he's in between feuds. And the main event, I thought this match was going to get better, but it didn't. And it held back the show. I would actually have to say that this is one of the better shows I've done in a while. Still not good. Still could have been better if I didn't book Daniel versus Dolph in the main event. But you live and learn. Okay, I'll see you at Smackdown. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for the support. So long.